So, hey everybody, also hey live stream. My name's Jon Daniel. Okay, good, the slides up. And my talk today is growth and mentorship, working with junior developers. I'm Binary Cleric on Twitter. I tweet about mostly nonsense, sometimes tech stuff, sometimes me just rambling for a while. It's, whatever. My blog is here. It's called Chronic Build Failure. It's the story of my life, aka I break the build constantly. I have things about there on various subjects. My most recent blog post was on bringing back apprenticeships in tech versus go to school for 4 years. A little bit about me. I've been working full-time in tech since 2007. I'm currently the lead infrastructure engineer, a lead infrastructure engineer at Heroku, working on the Department of Data team. I've only been there 3 months, so don't ask me too many questions because I have no idea how anything works. Yeah, it's part of the job. It'll probably be about a year before I understand how anything works. When you do like Heroku PS scale, I have no idea how any of that even functions. It's magic. And I've been mentoring junior developers since about 2012 up until early 2016 when Living Social had their 56% layoffs and I was part of it, so I lost the people that I was mentoring because they were also let go. We tried to pair a little bit, but then once people got new jobs and things, that all ended. I've been at Heroku for not long enough to really have a mentee yet, and we don't really hire a lot of junior developers, which I don't particularly like, but whatever. Also, since I know there are people that are remote in this talk, as you can see there, I added the Ask a Question bar. So if you go to that URL, there'll be a box for questions. Live streamers and people here, do that. It's better than raising your hand. There's going to be a bit of a lag on the live stream, so I'll try to answer those as quickly as possible. And if I just miss your question or don't answer it, no offense. So yeah, let's get started. First up, I have a note for junior developers. Who here is a junior developer or was a junior developer fairly recently, like within the past year or two? Yins are all awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. So this talk is mostly geared towards senior, lead, and above developers, but you should all pay attention to, because you really should get an idea of what you should be asking for at work and what you should expect in a good company. And if you're not seeing any of this stuff and you're just like, what? Then speak up, talk to your manager, talk to your team lead, and maybe talk to your company, like your CTO or your lead engineer or whatever, to get this as like an established standard. Because my first job, I was just thrown into the ocean and told to sink or swim. I had a little bit of mentorship, but not as much as I would like, and it sucked. I went to another job, tons of mentorship. It was awesome. So first up is, who exactly is a junior developer? Mentally, every single one of us. At least that's how I feel. But typically, a junior developer is someone who is like right out of college, right out of tech school, right out of code school. They've been programming for a while, like maybe contributing to open source, or in a few people's cases, improving like SNES or N64 emulators. I know a number of programmers who got their start that way. Or they're, just building websites, doing whatever. And I would consider someone who has maybe less than 2.5 years experience to also be a junior developer. People may have a bit more, but still be in that junior category. It's really a difference between like mindset and experience that differentiates one from the other. Some companies, you stop being junior after a year. Other companies, like some of the big banks and healthcare systems over there, it's like 5 or 6 years. I really don't understand how that works. This all varies company by company. If you don't know if you're a junior engineer or not, I would lean on the side of you're probably not if you're asking yourself that question. But yeah, I thought I was a junior developer until 2013, which was when I was promoted to a senior developer, so I missed a step. So now we get into, from the hiring perspective, from my perspective as a senior or lead developer. Whenever I'm interviewing a junior developer, what exactly should I expect them to know? And the answer to this is, look at what you think they'll know and cut it in half. And that's not a knock on junior developers, it's being realistic. Not everybody was the computer whiz kid Not everybody has been hacking away at whatever and breaking into the NSA or whatever since, they were 6 years old. And I hate that trope in TV shows, by the way. So they should have a firm understanding of at least one programming language. That doesn't mean that they've contributed to GCC as part of their learning of C++, but that means that, say it's Ruby. They know their way around, they know how gems work, they maybe know how to write a gem, but probably not. They can figure out auto-loading issues, they can work effectively in Sinatra or Rails, but that's about it. They can figure most problems out through a combination of perseverance and Stack Overflow programming, but they might run into problems where they're stuck and they need help. So keep that in mind. They should know about a little bit about external libraries in their language. So if, say, you're hiring someone as a C++ or Java developer, expect them to maybe have tinkered with graphics libraries or audio libraries, or if it's Java, I wanted to build a website using Java, and I have no idea why you do that, but people do. But this knowledge is limited. They're not going to be an expert in OpenGL Toolkit. They're not going to be an expert in Sinatra. They're not going to be an expert in, is it Phoenix? Is that the Elixir web framework?
Yes.
Okay, cool. They're not going to be experts in these things, and be aware of that. They should know the basics of a more advanced text editor beyond Notepad. Some would argue with Nano as well, but I try not to do that. So they should know something the basics of Sublime, of Atom, of Vim, Emacs. I don't know what other people are using, or even Eclipse, because some schools still use that. Visual Studio, it's fine. They should know how it works. They should be fairly proficient in day-to-day activities, but maybe they don't know all of the automation tricks. 2 years after I started my employment as a full-time developer, my Emacs config was atrocious. It was basically apt-get install Emacs and change 3 lines. It was bad, but it can still work. That's fine. So next up, we have this concept in so many job descriptions that I hate, which are, we have this whole concept of bonus points if you know the following, and then they'll list 25 things, be an expert at HTTP, have sat on the W3C board, have a master's degree in computer science or cryptography, be a core member of the Rails team. It's just silly, it's stupid. And try not to do this too much if you're writing a job posting. And keep in mind that bonuses are bonuses. It means we are more likely to call you if we see these things, but it's not a requirement. These are nice to haves. Forget that, assume that 0 applicants will have any of these. And maybe you'll get lucky and you'll find the person with a, doctorate in cryptography who looks at that and decides to not work at, Google or RSA and come to work on your startup that's making Facebook for cats. I don't know. Just be aware of that. Sorry, I gotta keep looking over at audience tools. And this one too, I fell into this trap when I started being involved in hiring. And during my job search my senior year of college, I was thrown into this trap numerous times. People would say, junior developer for blah, blah, blah bank, blah, blah, blah insurance company. And they would list must be an expert in cascading style sheets and JavaScript and must have minimum 2 years experience. It's for a junior position. What the hell are you talking about? And also things must be an expert at Git. No, just cross that line out, because my senior year of college, I knew Git commit. I didn't even understand what pushing was, because Git had just sort of come on the scene at that point. Or even Subversion. I had no idea how to set up for Subversion. I just knew check out, check in, SVN up, whatever. You got to keep in mind who a junior developer really is. They are not they're not on par with probably you as a senior developer. They're not even half of on par with you as a senior developer. They are someone who got their feet wet, who just finished their degree, they're still excited, and as soon as they see a stack trace, they go, help. Which, I've been doing this since 2007, and I still do that sometimes. It's okay. Okay, so you've reviewed the stack of resumes about, yay high. You found 2 or 3 people who are great. They're not geniuses by any stretch of the imagination. Don't hire those people. They're usually bad. They're solid. They're people that you want to work with, that you feel like will get along with your company. And okay, you brought them in. Now it's their first day. So this is where I've seen a lot of companies fall right on their face. And it's just getting a junior developer started. And it's so frustrating. First off, you need to understand they're going to be lost for a while. Like, hopelessly lost. I was. I'm sure almost everybody in this room was too. And developers are going to be throwing around a lot of acronyms, a lot of pet names for projects. Like, okay, wait, are we talking about? I'm trying to even remember some of them. Are we talking about Shogun here, or are we talking about Yubuko? Like, what do those things even mean? Or you'll use acronyms for internal projects you've built, or even just saying things like UX. There's a UX issue. What the hell does UX mean? So you're going to want to understand that and just be kind of careful about what you say in the early meetings and explain things out really well, even if the rest of your team is just rolling their eyes. You'll also want to spend a few hours or maybe even days with them to get their development environment set up so that they can do basic things. If you're using Visual Studio or Eclipse, there's probably some script you can run that'll just give you everything, and the developer will spend a little bit of time changing their color and fonts. So that's fine. But a lot of companies, for me, when I started at Heroku, there was so much stuff that needed to be done. I had probably a dozen Trello cards of here are all the steps you have to take to start coding. And I looked at that and this is going to take me a month. So next up, some people might cringe at this, but I really believe in it. You should make sure that their first deploy happens not rushing them through it, but as quickly as possible. This doesn't mean that they have to go implement the next big feature that's going to change the world. My first day at a company, I was told, my first day at the company, that was the first Ruby job I ever had. I had maybe been using Ruby for 4 months off and on at this point. I'd gone to 3 Ruby Brigade meetups. And I'm at this job, and they're like, okay, you're going to be in charge of our entire API. All RESTful stuff in Rails. And I'm like, I quit. I'm going to go back and work for Intermedics. So, yeah, don't do that. Give them small things. Give them little bugs that are just sitting in your queue that no one's gotten around to in a while. Things like UI tweaks. If it's, when people look at our app on mobile, this CSS isn't right and the thing's too big. Whatever. Or if it's when X, Y, and Z happen, A should happen, but it doesn't. And it's really trivial, an information box doesn't appear. Just, whatever. Things that, as mid-level senior developers, you would roll your eyes and be like, yeah, whenever I have time. But this is going to get them to commit code. They're going to see that little light green box in GitHub that is so satisfying. And they're going to be able to understand your review, merge, and deploy process, which in some companies, it's easy. The fact that my work environment is git push Heroku, amazing. Yes, Heroku uses Heroku to build Heroku. It's weird. It'll help them understand the code base, how things are laid out. Are you using asset pipeline? Are you just shoving everything in public? Are you doing, whatever? In my code base, everything's just in lib. We don't do Rails. And that threw me for a loop for a while. And it's also going to help them to get to know the team and your processes. Do you require a 2-developer code review? You need 2 thumbs up as GitHub comments in order for it to be merged? Is it just look at it, if the build breaks, fix it, if not merge? What's going on? And also giving them these small issues early on helps them to build confidence in themselves. They will go from that, oh no, I have no idea what I'm doing, they're going to find out that I'm a fraud, and I'm going to get fired in a week, and I'm going to have to go back to working in a computer lab or a Taco Bell or whatever. And it's terrifying. I went through that, we all went through that. So once they can see that, yeah, you can work proficiently, yeah, you're not an expert in anything, but you're getting there, it makes you feel better. Also, this is important too. Make them comfortable. When you walk into a new job and there are all these people that you view as being master developers, geniuses, whatever, and they don't leave you alone for 10 seconds, it's scary. If you're getting pinged in Slack or Campfire or HipChat all the time, that's going to be frustrating. If they constantly ask, are you done yet? Are you done yet? It's going to be terrible. So, like, give them time. Even, like, during the workday, just, like, we're going to leave you alone here, just poke around. Get your editor set up. And let them kind of just come down from the stress of their first day or week on the job. It'll also give them time to, like, read up on, like, mailing list discussions, read up on, Slack history of, like, what's going on. Maybe try to get an understanding of how these pieces fit together. And, I mean, they can just poke around, break things, learn things on their own. Maybe they'll understand stuff. So they're relaxed, they're comfortable. You've had pizza and beer with them or pizza and coffee with them a few times, and they know the team. So now you need to make sure they've built up confidence in themselves beyond the small bugs. Make sure that they are aware that they're a valued member of the team, that you will get there. You will be as good as the rest of us. It's all just knowledge at this point. You've passed the first level. And it makes them feel comfortable. Nothing is worse than going into a workplace, sitting down at your desk, and your mind is just so full of anxiety you can't think straight. So once they have built up confidence in themselves, and they feel like, okay, I can do this, this is where the fun part happens. Now, you just push them out of their comfort zone. Not saying you push them over a ledge, but slightly. Say they're fairly confident with Ruby, they understand, the basics of, like, Rails routes and all that stuff, but now you have to give them a project that will stretch that potential just a little bit. Something more complex. We want you to implement, this entire front-end thing in Angular, but most of it's already laid out, you just need to fill in the guts in a few places. Or we want you to add a couple new models to our Rails code base and make sure associations are set up properly and do the thing that DevOps or BizOps is telling us to do. This will push them. This will at first make them a little anxious, but then over time they will build up more and learn more. And you need to make sure that this is not time critical. If it would take you an hour and it takes them a week, it's fine. Make sure that everything is really well documented. If they look at a Trello ticket and it's one line that says, like, go implement X on Y, what? I'm just not even going to read that. So explain everything, make sure they understand what is expected of them, failure modes that should be expected, how to handle catastrophe, all that. And you kind of just let them go, give them resources, and keep a close eye on their progress. Not saying stand over their shoulder, but maybe every day just ask them, like, how's it going? Are you stuck on anything? And outside of your daily stand-ups, because no junior developer is ever going to talk about a blocker in their stand-up because they think they're going to look stupid. And as a bonus on this, I had this happen at a prior job where a junior developer ended up in a few months becoming a subject matter expert. The true dirty story of this is we had to do Facebook authentication for a platform, and I didn't want to do it. I'm like, I hate Facebook. I hate single sign-on. I just want it to work. Screw it. And I just told a junior developer, like, here's a ticket. Go work on it. I just didn't even care. It was bad on my part, but I'm going to be truthful. And this junior developer who was had his master's in philosophy and just decided to get into coding, who I was not terribly confident that they would be able to do it at first, and they blew me away. He became, oh wow, that is quite the ringtone. He ended up becoming an expert in devise, and the whole company went to him anytime they had a question. We were able to get Facebook auth out. We got, like, Google single sign-on out. We built our own auth provider on, like, OAuth. It was great, and I was just floored because I had to fix a bug in devise one time, and my, like, eyes glazed over. I'm like, I don't understand. Greg, help me. So, here I was, a senior developer, asking the developer that's been working for 6 months, help. And you need to give them opportunities to impress you, not the other way around. Do not sit there and try to impress them with all your Vim macros or all the things you can do in a single line, or, like, look at all these Docker build images I can build in 3 seconds. No, go the other way. They may not truly impress you, but, like, in terms of technical, like, the big picture technically, but they may really impress you that, like, oh wow, this person in 2 days figured out how to build a Docker image with a fairly complex set of requirements. Or, hey, they figured out how, like, Amazon security groups work in, like, a day. That took me a month. And this is really important. You want them to feel good about themselves. You want them to build their confidence in the company. And trust me, if you give them adequately challenging tasks, more often than not, they will blow you away. And this is where you can kind of find what they're doing in their career. This one is tricky because my last job at Living Social was totally cool with this. Other jobs may not have been, but I'm not really sure. Worst case, you just, for an hour or two once a month, go to a coffee shop after work. But set aside maybe 30 minutes to an hour every week, every other week, whenever, and just work on a fun side project together. If your company is cool with doing it on their time, awesome. If not, figure it out. But ask them to come up with an idea, or maybe give them their own. I had a junior developer who had an idea for using Twitter as a task list. So he would tweet with a certain hashtag, and then it would just like build up things to do, kind of like I've done this or whatever. And from a technical perspective, I mean, you know, whatever. That's neat. But in his mind, he was like blown away at all the stuff he could do. He'd never even thought about integrations before, and all of a sudden was learning how the Twitter API worked. And this is someone who had never done any work with like REST before. So we paired on that for probably a year, once a week, and he got it shipped. I forget the URL because I don't know if he's continues to maintain it, but it was, you know, on Heroku for a while. He was using it. His family was using it. It was amazing. And if your workplace is a little iffy on this, sell it as professional development. Usually, professional development means sending someone to a conference and getting a hotel for them, and they like lose 3 days of work. And it's, you know, if you're not a well-funded company, if you're still a startup, or even if you're, you know, just barely in the black, this can be a hard sell. So like professional development, like, look, this is way cheaper and takes less time, and until we get them to a higher level, you don't necessarily have to send them places that are expensive. And that too worked really well, especially when Living Social decided to cut our conference benefits, which was great. And get it built. It can be anything. It can be, you know, it can be like a S3 uploader that works via the command line that just uses the raw AWS SDK. It can be a Twitter bot that does silly things like respond to certain tweets with telling them about how they should learn about computers, because I've totally done that before. Whatever. Get it on GitHub, push it on Heroku if it's a service, and it kind of gives them that like first or second public project on GitHub. It gives them some open source work, and outside of your employer, people can see what they're doing. This also gives them a really neat greenfield project that they can experiment with and try new things, which means that they are not experimenting on your code base. Because if you don't give engineers enough new challenges and tech to work with, your code base becomes the new training ground. That's not good. And plus, they can work on these things without fear of like breaking the company. As a junior dev, I have definitely pushed code that like broke everything, and we had downtime, and it was my fault. And these things happen because I was pretty sure this was going to work, but I'd never done it before. And I was wrong. Having to do it on your own tiny app somewhere doesn't matter. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next Zuckerberg, but probably not. Don't expect that. And all this is done to get them excited. Your junior developer doesn't have to be someone who just like lives and breathes code, and like the minute they wake up on their bus ride to work, they're thinking about refactoring something or other. It doesn't mean that as soon as they go home, they just sit and hack all night, spend their evenings and weekends, and they have a Twitter account with like 4,000 followers that talks about code. Like, no junior developer is going to do this, statistically speaking. But when they come into work, they will feel good about it. They will say, okay, I have these challenges I need to solve, and they're not going to feel overwhelmed. Keeping someone excited doesn't mean obsessed. It means I enjoy going to work every day, even on the bad days. Next up, pairing is caring. And this is something that really struggled with me. It was a struggle for me because I'm not the biggest fan of pairing for a lot of things. I find it extremely mentally overwhelming because I'm an introvert and I have anxiety issues. But the occasional pairing exercise, especially in something that you don't fully understand, is great. Also, have junior developers pair with other junior developers, not just with the seniors. Because two developers may have 45% of the problem solved each, and now they're pairing and they can learn from each other. I saw a tweet a few years ago that was junior developers always work best in pairs. And like, I really believe that. Don't hire one junior developer, hire two. So like, if your plan is to hire 4 over the year, hire 2 in April and 2 in November, not 1 every couple months. It's comforting to know that somebody else in the company is just as lost and confused as you are. And this also doesn't mean that you are pairing with a junior developer on everything they're doing. Like, no, do not do that. I don't understand how companies like Pivotal work, where it's like 100% pairing. Like that, I'm having anxiety just thinking about that. But maybe ask the junior developer to pair with you on things throughout the week. It can be what you're working on. They may not understand all of it, but it'll kind of get concepts in their mind that they may not have had before. And I mean, they're probably not going to give you these amazing code suggestions, but have them participate. If they just go silent for 20 minutes, they're watching a YouTube video, or they're on Reddit, and they're just kind of going, Don't let that happen. If they get really quiet, ask them questions, and not like, so what was the return value of the function on line 409? Like, no, don't do that, but say, you've been quiet. Are you confused about what's going on here? Or do you not understand this piece of implementation? And if you start asking these questions, if you start being proactive instead of reactive, it gets a lot better, because the junior dev isn't sitting there eyes glazed over and feeling stupid. They now have the opportunity to speak up. And yeah, this is going to take you longer, but in the future, they'll do better. Also, whenever you do, whatever, get push, run builds, run acceptance tests, explain the tooling that you're using, and explain why we do it. I have run into numerous younger developers who just do not understand the purpose of tests. And it's like, I wrote code. Why do I need to write code that does the thing my code wrote? And like, okay, well, here's why. And at a GDI event a while ago, I paired with someone and taught them RSpec. And they were pretty blown away. It was nice. And pair with them too. Like, what's this project you're working on? I want to see it, and I want to see how you work, but not in a like, I'm sitting there judging you, but I'm giving you feedback. And during these times, a lot of times you run into like an issue that is a complete unknown. You add this feature, and suddenly this library that has been stable for years just blown apart. And when that happens, whatever you do, don't do this. Don't just go move, screen hero, switch over to your connection, and or even just push them away and go code in your laptop. Don't just sit there and be quiet and hammer away the fix. Slow down, take a deep breath, and explain what you're doing to the junior developer. If they can't lead at this point, that's fine, but make sure they're watching and they're engaged. Explain every step of the process. And even, best of all, this is something that most senior developers need to do, explain how messed up you are. Explain how broken your thought process is all the time. Like, okay, maybe Ruby's out of date. Let's update Ruby. Nope, that's not right. Maybe Bundler's out of date. Let's update that. Let's update all these gems. And now you're in this big mess and you don't know how to get out. Talk about your failures. Talk about how you have screwed up horribly 2 years ago, 4 years ago, yesterday, an hour ago. Don't let them think you're perfect, because that is a great way to make people anxious and not want to work there anymore. Also teach them about team dynamics. Who in the company knows what? Well, I mean, everybody says don't have a bus number that is 1, but we all do. I do. Raise your hand if your company has a bus number that is 1. For those of you that don't know, it means if there's one person in the company that gets hit by a bus, your company is screwed. That happens far too often, and it totally does. At my last job, there were services that nobody even knew how to deploy. Because they were all written in Scala, and we had 0 Scala people. So make sure they know who to talk to in situations. Who is on your team? What kind of person are they? How do they work? What do they work on? Give them a variety of work. If for their first 6 months you throw nothing at them but UI tweaks, they're going to get a little frustrated because, like, I'm not a front-end developer. I'll do the work, but, like, please teach me more about back-end stuff. And you may say, okay, fix the SQL query that's suboptimal, and they may hate it. But then you may say, okay, this thing in jQuery isn't working quite right. Can you look at it? And they may suddenly realize that they want to be a JavaScript developer. That, like, throw it at me. I'll take care of anything. I was the other way around, but I know plenty of people that were like, back-end sucks, front-end's amazing. And keep in mind that training and mentoring a developer is real work. This is not a distraction from your day-to-day. This is not getting in your way. If you are late on shipping a feature, but you are assigned to be the mentor of a junior developer, your company should understand that. If you're mentoring a junior developer, honestly, expect it to take up the Google free day of your time, like 20%, maybe 30, in some cases 50 for the first month or so. This is part of your job. And if a feature is late, you need to talk to your manager about that and say, I can't both ship Bitcoin integration and train this new person at the same time. What do you want me to do? Junior developers are an investment, not a distraction. If you treat them like garbage, they're going to leave. And now they have cost the company money because more or less the first year of anyone's employment is a cost to the company. There is zero profit involved in that. So invest in them so that they can stay at your company for 2 years, 4 years, 10 years, whenever you get bought by IBM or Salesforce. Just keep that in mind. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Salesforce buys everybody at this point. So I'm sure at least half of you in the next 10 years will have joined the board that is where I work. So looking forward to seeing all of you. And we're cool. We do cool things now. Not a lot of Java or .NET anymore. But yeah, I mean, junior developers, working with them is frustrating at times. It is mentally taxing. It takes up your time, but it's so rewarding. When I watched my protege at Living Social ship a huge feature that made customer support like 40% more effective, I was like humbled and honored. Like, he was doing things that I taught him, and now he has saved the company a ton of money. Unfortunately, that savings was so that they could fire 45% of the customer support staff, but I didn't know that at the time. So, take me out for a beer sometime and ask me about Living Social, and I will rant for hours. I'm not under NDA anymore, so anyway, that's my talk. Special thanks to the following people: Jordan Ritter, who's right there, Colin Dean, who's in the back, Lee Mataby, who's sitting next to Jordan with the green hair, and Tina Wiest, who could not be here tonight because she lives in San Antonio. But yeah, that's it. If anyone has any questions on the internet or here, willing to hear them now. Back to.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for Ron. As a toddler developer, is it common, because I've just started programming in the past 5 months.
Good job. Keep it up.
Thank you. Is it common, even if you develop some experience at a particular employer, to another employer and feel like you're starting from the ground up again?
So for you on the stream, the question was, if somebody, correct me if I got this wrong, if somebody who is new moves from employer to employer, is it usual to feel like they're at what, 0% again, or at the bottom level? Hell yes. Especially, and it doesn't even matter about language or technology or anything. If you're going from like one company that maybe does Java to another company that does like .NET, which I hope those aren't the normal two anymore, but yeah, it's totally understandable that you feel like you're the basement floor. You're in the so-called mailroom of the company. It sucks. It happens less as you continue in your career, because early on, your knowledge and what you bring to the company is the ability to code and the ability to close tickets. But as you progress in your career to mid-level, to senior, to lead, to freaking CTO if you want to be, your value is now solving problems and not just implementation. So totally expect to feel that for the next 2 or 3 years every time you change jobs. Hopefully you don't change jobs too many times in that time span, but it happens. Don't feel bad. Stay calm. It will be okay. Someone in the back had a question? I saw someone's hand go. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that the kind of work you might give them, you say, well, I'd like you to implement this thing that is more of the back end, and they say, well, I'm not. Is that really the thing that you mentioned?
So the question was, if you give a junior developer a task that's like working on the back end, and they kind of consider themselves a front-end dev, is that something a junior developer should be thinking about? Is that a good summary?
I mean, yeah, I didn't mean to sound so, but yeah.
No, that's totally reasonable. That depends. It depends on how unjunior they are, I guess. If it's like their first month and they say, "Oh no, I'm a JavaScript person. Don't tell me to like write SQL queries," they're kind of just being an unreasonable jerk at that point. But I mean, assign them whatever work needs to be done, especially for junior and mid-level developers. But if they come to you and say like, "Hey, I'm really liking JavaScript work. Can you start giving me more of that?" I feel like that's the right way to do it. You don't want to like pigeonhole somebody really early in their career, because that's how we end up with like the COBOL developers that still work today. No offense to them, because you're all doing great work keeping like the steel mill and the banks running. Please keep doing that. Don't quit. Let's see. Dan Wilkerson has a question. Beyond contributing to free and open source software and attending meetups, how does a junior dev who is looking for mentorship find someone if there aren't really senior folks in their org? This one's hard. I don't really think that contributing to a lot of open source really results in much mentorship unless the project is explicitly trying to do that. Almost all of my contributions to open source have been put up a pull request, have a couple maintainers yell at you about how you're stupid, in rare cases have them offer to pair with you, and then that's kind of the end of the interaction. So yeah, that sucks. Attending meetups, that's one of the good ways of doing it, unfortunately, but if you can't, that's bad. Get on Slack channels, get on IRC, talk to people, and eventually you'll find someone that you trust that can help you. Or beer, pizza, whatever. Buy me like a pound of good coffee, and I'll talk to you for like an hour or two. It'll be great.
I have a comment on the gentleman's point about working on fun stuff.
Okay.
What I used to do, I'd have the assignment, whatever I was given.
Mm-hmm.
I was given one assignment.
Actually, can you come up here and talk to the microphone if you have a comment?
Sure.
It's hard to reiterate these things.
I was given exactly one assignment my whole life, and the way I got to work on fun stuff, I paid attention to all the stuff that was going on, stuff that hadn't been assigned out yet. I picked out the stuff that I thought was fun, that I wanted to work on, and I worked on it. And when it came time to assign people, my boss would go like, "Well, heck, Rick over there, he's already doing it. If I put somebody else, it's like 2, 3, 4 weeks for somebody else to start up and get on it." So I got the stuff that I wanted to work on. Another thing that I was going to ask, what's the one thing that every junior developer, actually any developer for that we all want? Anybody ever remember watching the old Star Trek series? It's a piece of the action.
Don't be a red shirt junior developer. All right, I got time for probably like one more. Anyone else?
So not, I guess, with the company which are already there, but when you're looking for a new position, how do you, for a junior developer, what do you think is a good way to prod what they're onboarding?
Okay. For those of you on the stream, as a junior developer who is looking for a job, what's the best way to kind of prod the culture, learn about the people, figure out if this is a place you want to work? Is that a good summary? Yeah, this one's hard as a junior developer because at that point you're kind of beholden to the company for getting the interview. It's easy to fall into that trap of like, if I glance at someone the wrong way, or if I didn't shave quite well enough today, or my hair's not right, they're going to just tell me to get out. If your company does that, you don't want to work there already. I know that's a lot of privilege saying that, and that sucks, but we're in demand right now. It's pretty easy to keep an eye out. But also keep in mind that the interview process, at least good ones, are you interviewing them just as much as them interviewing you. And kind of come up with a list of questions to ask to kind of act as like red flags. So, hey, how often do like people kind of stay late into the night? Do people prefer to work, or even do people prefer to work their 8.5 hours early in the day or later in the evening? Do I have to be on call right away? What's that look like? I'm trying to think what else. Take a look around, look at the company, and if it's a bunch of like 25-year-old white guys who are sitting next to beer coolers or beer kegs, and they're all like high-fiving each other all day and chugging Soylent, and like blasting deadmau5, like maybe I don't want to work in that environment. I know a lot of people who wouldn't. If you have anxiety and you're an introvert, if you look and it's all like open office floor plan with like loud salespeople sitting next to developers trying to focus, like I would ask if you can work from home most of the time. But like, be mindful. Your intuition, your like kind of first instincts usually have merit to them. They're not necessarily always right, but they can be loud and they can be meaningful. I have turned down positions in companies because something didn't feel right. And talking to colleagues who later went to work for them, my suspicions were confirmed. I talked to other people. I found people who already work there, sometimes through friends of friends, etc. And that is really powerful. This company won't remain nameless, but during my job hunt, I found a company out in the Bay that I loved. Talking to them, they were great. I really wanted to work there. They offered me a job, and then I started doing the Glassdoor thing. Lots of low scores. And I found out that a friend of a friend used to work there along with like 3 or 4 of her friends. And we all got in a Slack room together and he said, okay, so what's the deal with Company X? And every single one of them was like, they will beat you to death every single day. Nobody lasts more than 6 months here. They hand stock options in your face that vest after 2 or 3 years. You will never see them. And expect them to have like arbitrary layoffs for whatever reason, which is a excuse to just get rid of the problem people. So that meant a lot. And a lot of times as a senior developer, if somebody just wants to meet you like off the record for coffee, I would accept that invitation, and a lot of other people would too. So do that. I saw Colin kept putting his hand up, so.
What suggestions do you have for convincing senior developers who are trying to grow into leadership roles that they need to, that you're going to move them off of the hot new product onto something less boring or more boring so that they can get seriously?
Can you say the beginning of that question again, because I missed it?
What suggestions do you have for convincing a junior developer that you're taking them off of a new hot project?
Okay.
Old stuff, where they can't see that.
Okay, so the question was, how do you talk to or convince a junior developer that you are taking them off of the new hot closure project or whatever in your company that is going to be the next big thing, and you're moving them towards a maybe more legacy system, but they're going to kind of be like the lead on that, or they're eventually going to take ownership of this? How do you like convince them that this is not a demotion? Does that summarize it okay?
Very excellent.
Yeah, so this part's always interesting because some people love it. They love the software maintenance cycle. Other people don't. They want to be in the new hot thing. But when you're trying to convince a junior developer of this, really try to convince them that this is not a demotion. We trust you. We have this thing that is the bread and butter of our company right now that we've stopped updating like 3 or 4 years ago to work on this other thing. But people need to work on it, to fix it, to keep it running, and it's making us money. And we are so kind of like impressed or happy with your performance that we have decided to give you this huge responsibility. And this isn't forever. We're not demoting you to like, permanent programmer for the rest of your life. But we think you can do this job and you can do it well. And if you like it, you can keep doing it. If you don't, the next reorg that comes around, we'll look at moving you elsewhere if you have that kind of flexibility. Some companies are different. A company that has 200 developers, 185 of them are working on keeping the existing systems running, and the rest are building a new cool mobile app. Other companies, it's the other way around. I have worked at both. You got to do what you got to do, but also be thoughtful and make sure that they know that they are appreciated within the organization. All right, so that's pretty much all the time that we have because I don't want to run us all into 9 p.m. So thanks for listening, everybody.